talking about this really quickly because it's been weighing heavy on me, and I get annoyed even though I understand the spiritual implications. I don't like it, and I don't like certain things constantly being forced down people's throats. I get love and I get forgiveness. I've talked about forgiveness before too. But I'm going to tell you something. At some point, there needs to be some kind of justice. I'm just going to say this. At some point, there needs to be some kind of justice. Because if there's no kind of justice, then it looks like you're only here to forgive and love while other people continue to get away with abusing you. And this is why some people don't like being Christians. I don't like the Christianity because it's a man-made religion. I don't like the idea of the religion of Christianity. Okay, because that is a man-made religion. It's a patriarchal religion. The actual true spirit behind it, to be honest with you, you'll see a lot of the divine feminine in it. You'll see a lot of feminine in it, even though the feminine seems to be oppressed. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. What I want to talk about is I listened to this pastor because he really, really talks about faith, and I know he lives by every word he say. He's one of the only pastors that I've seen that got everything by faith and literally believing, and never had to join any organization, because a lot of these pastors are Freemasons. This is one guy that have just as much as every one of these other pastors have, and never had to sell his soul. He literally lived by faith, literally. And so even though I don't believe in everything, because when you know the truth, you don't have to believe a lie. I'm just going to say it like that. When you know the truth, you don't have to believe a doggone lie. And you shouldn't be gaslit into believing a lie because the majority choose to keep believing lies. But be that as it may, the truth is the truth. And what he says about faith is the truth. Okay. And I keep watching him for that reason. But one thing he keeps bringing up is Charlie Kirk. He keeps bringing up Charlie Kirk. And he don't bring up Charlie Kirk in a negative way. And I don't talk about Charlie Kirk in a negative way either. One thing I said about Charlie Kirk is I just said, do not celebrate when your enemies fall, because the Most High would turn the anger from that person to you who is celebrating. So that's one thing I said. But one thing I did not do is say that Charlie Kirk was some kind of a great person. Because you got to look at the fruit. You got to look at what he left behind. What kind of energy did he left behind? Okay, you had somebody that wanted to bomb the Atlanta airport. You had guys showing up to HBCUs in the South talking about DEI is illegal and illegals should be deported. Okay, and this is the legacy that Charlie Kirk kind of left behind. So if he was getting people saved, why are these other white people going to these HBCUs harassing black people? And it was a white person who supposedly shot him in Utah, but they take their bus to HBCUs. This is the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Okay. But like I said, I don't like celebrating and jump up and down and dance around the campfire when somebody dies, but I don't have to be gaslit into just loving somebody. And you listen, I get love your enemies. So that's supernatural. When it says love your enemies, that's something that you can't do with the human emotion, especially somebody who definitely made a career out of putting down black people, saying that black people were DEI. Michelle Obama and all the other black women in politics, they were DEI. They were only there because of affirmative action, because they did not have the brain process and power to get the job otherwise, and they took the job that white people should have had. This is his words, his exact words, that black people, specifically Michelle Obama and other black women in politics, did not have the brain process and power to get the job otherwise, and they only got it because of affirmative action. No matter how much hard work they put into it, they only got it because of affirmative action. Now, let me tell you why that might be true, no matter how hard they work. Because the United States is extremely racist. And so no matter how much they deserve the job based on their hard work and studies and energy they put in, Charlie Kirk might be right about that affirmative action because the United States is extremely racist. But the way he said it was terrible. And this pastor didn't understand. He did not know some of the terrible things that Charlie Kirk has said about black people. This pastor's only thing he said, well, when he went on the college campuses, he was talking about Jesus and he was getting people saved. And I think I get slightly annoyed, and I get it, but at the same time, people were trying to send this pastor stuff on social media to get him to understand why they don't want to accept Charlie Kirk. And you should not force people to accept somebody. I don't like that. Like, just give people that time to like process things. Stop forcing, don't force, like, if that's the case, talk about Hitler and talk about why we should all just love Hitler. Talk about why we should all just love Saddam Hussein. Talk about that. Talk about why we should all love Jeffrey Dahmer. Because if you're going to love your enemies, because I get the point of loving your enemies, trust me, I get it. I get it. But at the same time, let's not stop at Charlie Kirk. Let's talk about Hitler. Let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Let's talk about Joe Biden. Let's talk about all of them. Let's talk about R. Kelly. Let's talk about Bill Cosby. Let's talk about some of the biggest serial killers in the world. Let's talk about them too, because that's all included. Let's talk about Satan. If you love your enemies, you should love Satan, because that's your biggest enemy. And the Satan, I feel like the God and the devil is inside of you. I don't feel like God or the devil is outside of you. I think it's within. I don't think it's anything on the outside. I don't believe in such thing as being on the outside. Everything is within. You know how I feel about that. I don't feel like it's some other person or entity outside of yourself. Okay? But if you're going to love your enemies, the biggest enemy you should love is the devil. You should really love the devil. If you love your enemies, the biggest enemy you need to love is the devil. But I always hear Christians talking negatively about the devil. Christians always talk negatively about the devil, but you're supposed to love your enemies. If you love your enemies, the devil is your enemy. The devil is the one to bring all this stuff to you. If all these other people are your enemies, who's bringing it to you? Is it the devil? Then you should love the devil. Why don't Christians love the devil? So that's what I'm talking about. I get what he's saying about Charlie Kirk, but when people tried to show him some of the things that Charlie Kirk said about people in social media, he said, well, I don't look at social media. I just know he was talking about Jesus. I'm like, no. If you don't want to if you're not a person who look at social media, that's fine if you choose not to look at social media. But at the same time, if you don't want to really understand where other people are coming from, I think it's kind of wrong to force him down people's throats. Stop forcing people to accept that man, especially black people or brown people. I don't like the term black, but that's what they use, and so I just use the term black. Stop forcing black people to accept a man who called any black person who worked in any job other than the field a DEI. Any black person that went to college calling them a DEI. That is what he said. Specifically, when somebody said, he said that if he get on the plane and a black man is the pilot, in his mind he'll say, oh my God, I hope that he's qualified. That's what he said. If a black man is a pilot, he said, oh my God, I hope that he's qualified. So he's just assuming that any black person who have a job is there by affirmative action, not because they put the work in. This is the ignorance that he spread. That was his legacy. People don't get that. His legacy is not saving souls. His legacy was DEI, affirmative action. That was his legacy. That's what he left behind. White people were ready to go kill unalive black people. That was his legacy. That's what he left behind. And I'm not like hating on him, but I feel like it's wrong to just overlook things. You don't have to hate him. Like, I don't want to give nobody so much energy that I have to hate them. But at the same time, when you tell me, when you force me to love them, love is something that is not based on a human type of emotion. So when you love your enemies, it's a type of frequency. But like, I don't want to hear. I don't have to. I don't want Charlie Kirk shoved down my throat, because if you shove Charlie Kirk down my throat, knowing what he said, especially about black women, saying black women did not have processing, brain processing power to be in politics, and they took the jobs that a white person should have had, and you keep forcing me to accept that man. Because you said that he got people saved. Who did he save? Because it certainly wasn't black people. He said black people wasn't qualified. See, and that right there is rousing the anger of people, because he refused. This pastor refused to look at the things that Charlie Kirk said, and because he's refusing to see what Charlie Kirk said about people, he just wants just love. This is why people don't like Christianity, because they think it's a slave religion. Specifically for black people, you have to be abused, and you have to love your abuser. Christianity, to some black people, Christianity forces black people to love their abuser without any justice. The legacy that Charlie Kirk left behind was white supremacy, KKK, black people belong in the fields. That is his legacy that he left behind. I don't care about Turning Point. That was his legacy. When white people wanted to follow in his footsteps, they went to HBCUs calling black students DEIs. That was what white people did after he passed away, or whatever happened to him, because I don't believe the story that they wanted to give us. Okay. But anyway, I just don't care for that. And like I said, it's not that I'm upset, because really your identity is not in what somebody else think about you. Your identity is not in what somebody else think about you. At the same time, if somebody else wants to be constantly be negative, you shouldn't be forced to just keep accepting them. You can love your enemies, but at the same time, if you love Charlie Kirk, you need to love the freaking devil. And I'm not calling Charlie Kirk the devil, but if you love your enemies, don't stop at Charlie Kirk. Just name all of them. Name all of them. Name the slave masters. Name the slave masters who fed their babies to the alligators. Love them too. Love the slave masters that hung black people on trees. Love them too, because those are your enemies. But you know what's behind all of that? The Satan, right? The devil. So now you need to love the devil. That's why I don't like that. If you want to I just got annoyed with that. I just had to talk about it, because that made me so annoyed that a person refused to really see what it is that made black people so angry. But he said, regardless of what he did, he talked about Jesus. I don't care. Look at his legacy that he left behind. He left behind a whole lot of, it's almost like a civil war. He wasn't getting people saved. I don't know who he got saved, or if he was saved himself. And I get that a lot of black Christians say that Charlie Kirk is their brother, right? But I don't know if Charlie Kirk felt the same way about black people who could have been Christians. I don't even know if he felt like Christianity was for black people, or was it just a religion for white people? Because he was a white supremacist. Okay. And so, like I say, that's why I'm not in religion. That's why I'm not a Christian. I don't like that. That's why I'm not a Christian, because I get loving your enemies. I get that, but that's something that's supernatural. You need faith to love your enemies. That is something that's supernatural. That is that you can't love somebody that's an enemy that persecute you. You can't love them with a human emotion. You cannot love them with a human emotion, because they are persecuting you. It takes faith to love them, and that's supernatural. And when you love your enemies, you actually they can't even hurt you anymore. This is supernatural. It's a spirit. It's not the love of a human emotion. Like, I love you, punch you in the face. I still love you, punch you in the face. I love you, punch you in the face. I just love you, punch you in the face again. No, you can't love people like that with a human emotion. That is the kind of love that comes from faith. That is supernatural. That ain't got nothing to do with no human. So I get what he's saying, but at the same time, it's just annoying. that black people are always forced to love their persecutors. Like this guy, I think he was an ex-military, somebody who was in the military, but his wife, I don't know if he was if she was sexually assaulted by a police officer while he was watching. It was a white man and a black man, and he was married to a black woman. And this black woman was sexually assaulted by this white police officer, and while he was forced to watch, this black man was forced to watch his wife get sexually assaulted. And when I say sexually assaulted, I don't think he went the whole 9 yards by literally raping her, but I think he molested her, right? He molested her, right? He put his hands all over her and groped her and all that stuff, right? So, oh my God, are they gonna go? They're just gonna stop there. They're not gonna move. Anyway, and he was forced to watch all of that. What did that do to his manhood? And this is a white man that he was forced to watch somebody sexually assault his wife. And do you know what this black man said? He talked about forgiveness. He talked about forgiveness, how you had to forgive. I'm so sick of that, because now this is cowardly. You don't want to do anything about it. You don't feel like you have the power to do anything about it. And so since you don't feel like you don't have the power to do anything about it, you feel like forgiveness. You want to, like, forgiveness to me, the way some people use love and forgiveness, to me it's a cop-out. Now, I'm not saying it in the way this pastor used it, because this pastor, I don't think this pastor is a coward at all. I think he was not educated on how this man really, and the real legacy he left behind. He left behind a lot of hate. It's the hate that white people already had in them, but it seemed like shortly after he passed away, black people were under attack, and so you judge a tree by the fruit it bared, and that's what he left behind. Nobody was trying to get anybody saved after he died. If they wanted to continue in his legacy, you would have seen people go out and get folks saved. No, his followers went to threaten black people. So that shows you what kind of energy that was on him. And so my issue with this pastor is he didn't take the time to see that, and he just keep telling black people to love. And since I'm tired of that. Like, it needs to be some kind of justice. It needs to come to a point where you have to stop taking this stuff off of people. Why are black people always bullied? Well, black people are always bullied because they continue to take it. That's why. But it comes a time where, like, we get love, but God dang it, like, black people, it was a guy that was ready to blow up, a Charlie Kirk follower, ready to blow up. No, not blow up, shoot up. Atlanta Airport. He was detained at Atlanta Airport. Why of all places would he go to Atlanta Airport? It's full of black people. This was a follower of Charlie Kirk that was ready, that went to Atlanta Airport specifically to shoot up the airport. This is what Charlie Kirk left behind. Nobody was interested in bringing anybody to Jesus. Okay? So my thing is, it has to be a point where black people need to understand how to defend themselves. I'm not even going to say we. I'm not going to put myself in there, because I'm at the point of justice. I'm at the point of vengeance. I'm at the point of vengeance because loving your enemies is something that's supernatural. You can love your enemies and still get justice from being persecuted and being mistreated. So love and forgiveness and all of that's supernatural. Like I said, that can't come from no doggone human effort. That's why people have a hard time with it, because that cannot come from human effort. That is supernatural, and it takes faith to do it. That is something that comes from the Most High. That is not something that comes from a human being. So you can't love your enemies with your dominant emotion, because if they choking you out and punch you in the face and kicking you and raping you, you can't love them with a human emotion. They hurting you. You're traumatized. You can't. When you're traumatized, you can't love them on a human emotion, and you're traumatized. I feel like this is why people don't like the Christians, Christianity, because you overlooking the trauma that people are going through, and you just go straight to love, and you bypass the trauma, and they don't understand that love is something new, but something supernatural. But it has to be some kind of justice. It needs to be some kind of justice that comes in somewhere. It has to be justice. But no physical person is going to give black people justice. Black people are going to have to get back to their black people are going to have to become more spiritual. Okay, black people are going to have to get back to black people are just going to have faith. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to be a spiritual. The battle that black people deal with is not carnal. It's spiritual. It's spiritual. Okay. And see, people say, well, they need to get to God and stuff, but I don't think black people understand. Black people deny the power. Black people deny the power. Because if they really had the true faith, they probably wouldn't be going through a lot of things, right? Now, I'm not talking about the white Jesus that was presented to black people. And like I say, I always say that all of this is within. For me, all of this is something that's within you. But the black people need to get back to the God part of themselves. Black people need to get back to that part of themselves. A lot of black people are still in their ego, and they cannot defeat and overcome the abuse that come from white people, because they need to get back to the God that is within them. I'll say it like that. They need to get back to the God that's within them. They need to put their faith to work. Black people do not put their faith to work. Black people are not standing in authority. They are not standing in spiritual authority. And I'm telling you, and I don't care who really disagrees with it, it's really all in the Bible. Just overlook the fact that, Christianity is a man-made and all that stuff. I think people, that gets in the way of what's really in there. There's a lot of helpful stuff in the Bible. And I think the fact that a lot of saints, of the real saints, were hijacked by false people, right? People just want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. But yeah, like I said, I think a lot of times the black people, besides this pastor, because I know it's not him, he just don't understand the things that Charlie Kirk said. But other than that, like this guy that watched his wife get molested by this white cop, and then all he did was talk about forgiveness. That was a cop out. He just felt like he didn't have the power to stand up to this cop, and all he could talk about is forgiveness, and the God commands us to forgive. And that cop does not have to answer to what he did to that woman. That cop does not have to answer to, how he abused his authority. He doesn't have to answer, because this black man, and I'm not just talking about a black man, because black women talk about forgiveness too, so I'm not just trying to hop on him because he's a black man. I'm talking about black people in general. Black people in general, they want to keep talking about forgiveness because they feel like there's nothing else they can do, and they just keep getting abused and persecuted. Okay, and they say, well, you have to forgive. The Lord tells us to forgive, but at the same time, you don't have to just keep tolerating abuse. And that does something energetically to a person, to continually be persecuted and to continually be mistreated, and there's never any justice. You're never avenged. That does something energetically to a person. You're always the tail and never the head. Okay? So anyway, with that being said, it's time for me to go on, and I'm about to get ready to go, and I will talk later. All right.